Now this, of course, is the new NORCO Range VLT, which you've had on test here for quite a little while. And one of the things that's really cool about this bike is it features the biggest battery we've ever had at Evolution Magazine, which is 900 watt hours, but we'll get more into that later on. It also features a complete aluminium frame, 290 wheels, tons of travel, and Shimano EP8 motor. Now one of the cool things when NORCO released this bike, they actually released the entire suite of e-bikes. So whereabouts, Scott, does this thing line up into the NORCO range?
Yeah, well, they released 3 different models, but however, a number of different builds in alloy and also carbon. They did the Optic, which is the short travel version. They did the Sight, which is their mid-travel version, and they did this sucker, which is the Range, which is the long travel version. So for all you aggressive trail riders out there, or downhillers or enduro riders that want a really aggressive big rig, 180mm of travel up front, 170 in the back. But the coolest thing about their whole range is you can buy 3 different size batteries. This has got the 900 watt battery, they do a 720 watt battery, and they do a 540 watt battery as well. And all of those batteries are interchangeable with all their models depending on how big your rides want to be.
So NORCO's new e-bike lineup features a ton of different options, as Scotty's just touched on. Now, this bike is in its stock configuration. You've been on it for a few months now, mate. Is there anything you sort of changed and tweaked on the bike over that time?
Yeah, look, I mean, the only thing I probably changed in relation to this bike is this isn't the stock stem. I run a little bit longer stem. This is a large. However, I'd probably, if I was going to get one for myself, I'd probably ride an XL. However, I'm sort of right between the cusp of a large and X large. So there's a little bit longer stem, and I've put a 450 pound spring in there, so the 500 was just a little bit heavy for me. I mean, we don't touch too much on bike setups, but apart from everything else, yeah, the bike's 100% stock.
So at the heart of this bike is Shimano's new EP8 motor, which we've seen on a couple of bikes now, but I think this is the first time you've ridden it. So Scott, what's the EP8 motor like to live with? How's it feel? What's your first impressions of this thing? You've been on it for a little while now.
Yeah, look, I really can't fault it. I mean, prior to actually riding this motor, I'd ridden the 8000 and I've ridden a couple of other motors. And, I'd read a lot of things about this motor, and like everything, it has its pros and cons. And there were some naysayers that sort of said a few things about this motor. However, I can't fault it. I find it's been really reliable. The power output is really nice. It's got plenty of torque. However, the biggest difference between this motor and the previous motor is this has a lot smoother power delivery.
All right, Scotty, so you've had this bike for a fair few months now. You've put over 1,000 kilometers in on the trails on it. Mate, how does it ride? What's its personality like? Tell us about what this thing's like to live with.
Yeah, look, as I just touched on before, like this is, their aggressive, e-bike. So if you're one of the gravity-fed people out there who really enjoys their downhilling, then this is obviously the bike to go for. One thing I really like about this bike overall, especially with the 900 watt battery, is I went out some days and just did downhill run after downhill run after downhill run, and I tell you what, like, I was knackered. I ran out of juice before the bike did. The only thing I'd say, like, obviously when you're getting a bigger battery, you're getting a little bit more weight, so the bike was probably a little bit less nimble the heavier it got, so I found that you're probably braking a little bit earlier into corners, and you're tipping the bike in a little bit earlier into corners with the bigger wheels and whatnot as well. So you do notice the weight in this bike a little bit. However, the trade-off with that is you're getting so many more laps in on the bike as well. And the other thing I found as well is it's almost like riding a little mini downer bike with that extra weight in it. 180 fork up front, 170 in the back, as I said. When you're hitting all the rough stuff and everything, this bike is really planted. Like, you're coming into sections and you can really hit a lot of those sections with a hell of a lot of confidence because of that, added weight in the bike. So bang for your bucks, across the whole range of NORCO, these things are absolutely awesome. So, I mean, overall, mate, everything has its pro cons, but as far as this thing goes, I really enjoyed riding it.
So there you have it, right from the horse's mouth of the guy that's been riding this bike for the last few months. To learn more about this bike and to learn more of Scott's insights, be sure to grab yourself the latest copy of Revolution Magazine on sale right now.